individual projects. So we're going to look at a Papillon project with butterflies, and I'll have larger images in a minute. That's right up there. And then we'll look at the Bleeding Rainbow. Has anyone seen the Bleeding Rainbow? Yeah, it's on. I think it's
Grand Boulevard.
It's on Grand, but you can see it from Woodward. And then this. Does anybody know what this is? Anybody recognize that? This is part of the Design 99, Mitch Cope and Gina Reichert. This is their Powerhouse project, or part of it, and it's gotten a lot of coverage in the New York Times. So you
Where's
may.
that located?
This one is.
That's here in Detroit too?
That one's in Detroit too. That's the kind of eastern side of Detroit. I'll tell you in a minute. I have it behind you. The
I bet he
actual
knows.
street.
I bet our artist
Moran.
friend knows. You know where that is? You know where that is?
No, I've seen
Okay.
pictures of it. No, sorry.
It's on Moran Street. I don't know if that.
It's on the east side.
It's on the east side, yeah. And then Hamtramck Disneyland. Has anybody seen that one? That's a kind of a private project in someone's backyard, done in the late 90s. So I'd like us to kind of go through all of those, and I've asked for the audience participation so that we can kind of change the listening a little bit, so that you're not just listening to me talk about what I think, but also that strategically, at times when artists have something to say, at times when authors or theorists have something to say, that we can kind of redirect our attention towards one of the participants and listen in a new way. I just thought it would be interesting to try on. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to look at, and shall I take the lights down so that you can see a bit better? I wonder if some of these little peripheral lights could be taken down. No.
I don't know. Meta, can they? I don't know.
Meta, can some of these like overhead lights be taken down? Oh, that's nice. I think that's a little better. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay. So this first piece is called the Papillon Effect. Did anybody hear about like the hundreds of butterflies created by artist Chas Miller? Anyone familiar with that? Oh yes, what do you know about it?
I tried to get into irony. He's, I got work for you. He said, well, that would entail me actually paying you. And he said, this is a one-man operation. And apparently he goes all around looking for volunteer students, volunteer funding, and he must find people with the cherry pickers to put the butterflies up. But they cut them out of wood. They're rather elaborate, and then the kids paint them. And it could be maybe even an inch thick or more of that wood.
I see. They're not painted onto the surface.
And then they're attached.
Correct.
Then they're attached to whatever. I think there's one at Eastern Market too, next to Rockies. Just down the street from Rockies is one of these butterflies. But there's some abandoned buildings. They put a butterfly in on every board over every window. So I assume that the person, the cherry picker up there, also was volunteering their services. I think you can just Google search him, Chas Miller, Detroit, C-H-A-Z-Z Miller, and you probably pick him up. He's with a revitalization house. Blightbuster.
Yes, Blightbuster.
Oh.
So this is fascinating. Thank you so much for that. That's exactly why I'm so pleased that you guys are all gathered here today, because there's kind of layers and layers and layers of information. So Chas Miller is an artist who has created a company called Public Art Works, which is a nonprofit, and he had this idea to create kind of a host of butterflies that would brighten the city in various ways. As Donna Turk of the Detroit News says, to perk up abandoned properties and to glorify rehab projects with psychedelic color. So I thought it was quite interesting because I pass this mural every day, and not once have I ever thought this was psychedelic. But we will see in this project and in others a kind of a repetition in terms of reporters trying to account for the use of color and gravitating towards the outrageous or the psychedelic. So I don't know if it's just that reporters are kind of lacking a better term, or if the power of a word like psychedelic is what they're trying to convey. So this is a kind of an interesting thing. And Mary has a quote from Chaz, and so Mary, if you would share what Chaz Miller says about his own project and where it's coming from.
Detroit was rated highest on the misery index. I thought that was pretty bizarre. We're supposed to be the most depressed city in all these states, so I thought Detroit needed a psychological readjustment. I mean, when you look at a caterpillar, you would never imagine a caterpillar is going to turn into a butterfly. And when you look at Detroit, you never imagine Detroit is going to come up off its knees. But I like to say, we're going to pick up the spirit of Detroit and walk them down Woodward. Right now, it's a great metaphor for me to see Detroit as a butterfly, a papillion, to re-emerge. But just keep your eyes open, because we're really trying to plan to make Detroit better visually with public art.
So I just thought that the artists themselves talking about their art is quite fascinating. And Miller has these kind of juxtaposed hopes, both like firmly rooted in the community and community practice, making a change on the ground with his core of volunteers, and really drawing on youth. He's really focused on youth involvement. But then at the same time, he has high hopes, including, quote unquote, to revitalize Northwest Detroit into a world-class public art showcase using murals as the catalyst for change. So it's this kind of both on the ground, tactical involvement with the community, but also this kind of big, broad, overarching, bringing the spotlight, bringing the attention. The thing that's interesting to me about this mural is not just its location. You know, it's right up against this liquor store, and right up against this kind of graffiti that's not necessarily welcoming graffiti, a little bit kind of confrontational. So on the one hand, you have his art actually beginning a dialogue with the graffiti, with the liquor store, not trying to get rid of anything, just creating a new conversation, which I think is quite interesting. And then the difference between these kind of big photos versus the detail shot is what further interests me, because as I was talking about that kind of idea of rough draft happiness with that purple mural that I loved, the kind of unfinishedness, upon really close inspection, or when you're actually up in the Papillon Effect mural, which is right on the corner of Kenilworth and Woodward, it's still quite messy. You know, it's there, the evidence of people's hands and the kind of unpreciousness. Like, we're just going to paint this part of the box, like there's just something kind of nice about that. Like, we're going to do what we can do when we can do it. Some elements are a little bit more focused and detailed, but you have both and, right? So on the one hand, you know, when we go backwards, it's very easy to take gorgeous shots of this, and I actually asked Richard to take ungorgeous shots. These are all like, don't do the glamour shots, because we have a lot of glamour shots of community murals. Try to make it look like it really looks when you're there. So he's intentionally included a sidewalk and a kind of multiplicity of check cashing places and other businesses, you know, embracing the whole of the corner as opposed to just doing the kind of epic shot of the mural. So you have that, and that photographs really well, and it plays really well per Miller's intention of turning Northwest Detroit into a world-class public art showcase, okay? But then the truthfulness still exists in terms of kind of at the tactical level, which I really enjoy, that kind of tension between the two. So we move on here to this illuminated mural, Bleeding Rainbow by Katie Craig. And Katie Craig is a fairly recent grad from the College for Creative Studies. And she was successful in getting a $33,000 grant from the Community and Public Arts Detroit program. It's a program that's facilitated by the College for Creative Studies with a substantial endowment from the Skillman Foundation. And local artists, I think in her round, like 50 artists, including Katie, this was back in 2008, 2009, submitted proposals, and then a selection panel from CCS chooses kind of some of the strongest proposals. And then the step that they go a little bit further, which is quite nice, is that then the selected artists have to present their idea to a panel of residents. Actually have a conversation with people that live in this area, so that it's not just a matter of, we think this is a great idea. So I really appreciate that. Okay, so Ryan